Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope you guys are all enjoying a good Thursday here to start the day. A little cold outside this week, but we're back in orange. Gyms are open. People can open their businesses again. So all good stuff. The world of sports, obviously football is over for now. Still a lot of offseason chatter with Carson Wentz possibly on the move, Deshaun Watson, and the stalemate in Houston. And obviously, the draft further down the line. So, that's not going to go away here into the point, but it'll be less featured. Try to get more into NBA, the NHL. Golf is something that now that the NFL is gone on Sundays, I love to throw in golf. And Saturday and Sunday, every weekend, it's awesome to have, watch golf for 5-6 hours. So today, starting the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, but it's kind of normally you'd see a better field, but there's no top 10 players in the field. Dustin Johnson withdrew. It's a great course. This event was won last year by Canadian Nick Taylor, so he'll be in the field looking to defend his title. But yeah, that kicks off today in California. But the big headline today for me, and let's start it off here. I'd like to say congratulations to all the Toronto Maple Leafs fans for winning winning February 10th. Toronto, big win over Montreal last night. Impressive. But and to the point, we get to the point, right? And it's in the name. And I don't crown anybody until they deserve it. I crown the Bucks. I picked them to win. They won, and I give them credit for winning. I'll let the media in Toronto hype up the Maple Leafs. I'm going to talk about how great they played last night, and I'll do that. But, you can't – it's like kicking a dead horse with the media world. And, here maybe this will hurt me in wanting to get a media job someday, but I don't care. This is my platform. And, the amount of media people in the business right now that are fans and not journalists is really ridiculous to me. And you can say Toronto played great, but before the game, saying this was a Stanley, these two were Stanley Cup contenders, and that the Toronto Maple Leafs with this win, it cement themselves as one of the top 4 teams to win the Cup. Okay, fine. Have that. Maple Leafs fans, have at it. That's fine. And Montreal fans, I would have been saying the same thing today. But I attack the big media, the teams that get media for no reason. The Toronto Maple Leafs have been the New York Jets of the NHL for a long period of time now. And if you're a Leafs fan, you're probably screaming at me right now. But in your heart of hearts, I'm right. You've been irrelevant. And you're starting to be good, but it's a team that's getting overhyped too soon. I think of the Cleveland Browns this year, this season and the season before, where they had Baker Mayfield. He won Rookie of the Year. They come in the next year, they go 6-10. Okay, you missed the playoffs. After all that hype, it looked like they're going to be a great team. This year they make the playoffs. Great, great season for the Browns. But it's this premature crowning of teams that just bothers me. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm gonna prop them up because guess what? They won last year and they basically had the same team and they're kicking ass. And for a team like Toronto, this regular season is irrelevant. If they win it, great, good for them. But if they win this division and they lose to Edmonton in the playoffs, then what was the great regular season where all the Toronto Maple Leafs fans can clamor and they can chant and be so excited for their little Maple Leafs, it's worth nothing. And I'll revisit this topic on the podcast if in June, July, they go out there and win the Cup. Then guess what? I'll eat crow on this topic. And I'm not saying they're not one of the top 5 best teams in NHL. I want to make that clear. But it's these stories after the game. And I'll let these Toronto radio shows kiss ass because they're better at it than anybody. They've taken a master's degree in kissing ass. And, I've never been good at, brown nosing, so to speak. And I'm not going to start today. But last night, kudos to Toronto. They're playing Montreal. They've been beating Vancouver, but you can only beat who's on your schedule. And, I think the bigger headline of the Canadian division, so to speak, and just in general is how bad it is. I mean, the Central, who's been ravaged with COVID, has been stronger than the Canadian division. When it looks at just competitive balance in divisions, the Central has been tougher than the Canadian division. I mean, Toronto, Montreal, even Winnipeg hasn't been consistent. I thought they'd be better. I think they'll find their game a bit here, but it's been a struggle. But the two behemoths in the division, both teams playing fantastic hockey, coming to last night. And Toronto, I think this was their most impressive win of the year. Of course, it's against their toughest opponent. But yeah, I thought they played some great games against Edmonton, and their games against Calgary, a bit of a snooze fest. They were hard to watch. But they played Winnipeg on a Monday night early in the year. I think that was a really impressive game. I thought they dominated Winnipeg and really showed Winnipeg how it was done in that game. But after the first 10 minutes of last night's game, I really thought Toronto controlled play. And what the biggest thing for me that was impressive is they won without their big boys really playing that well. I think Matthews had one of his worst games of the season last night. Just didn't have it for me. He was scoring in 8 straight, so he's due for a game without a goal. But to have a good game, you don't have to just score a goal. I mean, there's games, if you played sports, if you got a goal in a game, it doesn't mean you played well. You can go after the game and say, well, I scored. Well, that doesn't mean you played that great. You could have scored in the first period. The next 2, you dogged it. You didn't play that well. He just wasn't as invested as he usually is. I think so far this year, he hasn't had many bad games. He's been one of the more consistent players in the NHL and definitely in the top 5 in the Hart Trophy for MVP votes as we speak right now. But, last night, it's about depth. They get a goal from Travis Dermott. Travis Dermott's coming off injury. Travis Dermott, who I like to call Dawson Warman, my good friend. They play awful similar. Nice shot. Beats Carey Price. I think Price would want that one back. He hasn't been that sharp so far this season. I didn't think he was great last night. A couple goals I'd want back. Then, you get a goal from Justin Hall. Like it was just coming from these different players that you wouldn't expect to see score. Ilya Mikheyev, who's got hands like bricks, finally puts one in the back of the net after over 400 days without scoring a goal. Alex Kerfoot getting a point, actually doing something, positive is another big contribution. I'll be hard on him in this podcast because I just don't see what he brings to the table. He's not strong. He's not good at faceoffs. He's not good defensively. He's not a good third line checking line center. But he fits Kyle Dubas's mold of having a short guy on your team. So that's why he's there. But just good depth play. I thought Montreal the first 10 minutes, I thought Montreal was the way better team. The first goal of the game, it's my guy, Josh Anderson, the unicorn, as I like to call him. Jake Muzzin, was a tough defenseman, didn't want to take a hit from him because he saw Josh Anderson, the freight train from hell, coming at him, throws a pizza right up the middle to Drouin. Drouin takes it. Anderson's faster than Muzzin, goes down the right wing, 5-hole back of the net. That's his 9th of the year. That's another, there's a lot of backlash on the Anderson signing because they gave him a big ticket with years, 7 times 5. And he's got 9 goals. He's got 2 shorties. I mean, he's a pretty good player. Yeah. Is he better than Max Domi? Maybe. I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comments about Anderson, but I think he's got 2 less goals than Matthews. So that's just context there. But that other than a few like that Muzzin play, but I thought Riley played well last night. Brody he's kind of throwing some pizzas up the middle a little bit, but he's prone to do that. But Riley's been playing well past 4 or 5 games. I think the team's defensive structure has improved, and the only way you're going to win is if, with an average defense score, which is what Toronto has, is if you play 200 feet most of your guys. You're not going to see it from Matt. I think Matthews has improved defensively immensely, but is he a 200-foot player? No, because, and let's be honest, you don't want him to be a 200-foot player. You want him to score goals. You want him to be offensive. If he's being a 200-foot player, he's going to be, Mikko Koivu in Minnesota, who shut out, just retired, great career. You're going to be, playing for John Tortorella. You're going to be his center. You're going to be coming back and playing defensively and shaving off points, Matt Barzal-esque in Long Island, playing for Barry Trotz. You want Matthews to be creative. You want him to score 50 goals, maybe get close to 100 points if he's continues to evolve as a passer. It's okay that he's not. I think Matthews is better defensively than Marner because Matthews can do more. But the one thing I will give credit to Matthews for last night is he had a little bit of a physical edge. He didn't have a great game, I didn't think, as a whole, but he's starting to throw his body around more. And I've been clamoring for this for years, just watching games. I mean, he's such a big guy. You're strong, hit somebody. In the playoffs, him doing his little C-cut, Austin Matthews end arounds, his little curl and drags when the guy's got the puck. Just hit him, separate from the puck, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to leave with it because you're 215 pounds, 6'3", 6'4", like it's over. And you're starting to see it. And for Toronto Maple Leafs fans, that's where the encouragement is, to see him continue, just become a full, complete player. That the best players, when they can do that, is when you see the full potential. And Matthews, he scored 47 last year, but he wasn't even close to the same player he is this year. He was great last year. Don't get me wrong. Not as good as he is this year. He's just more consistent. Again, he's playing the physical game. Defensively, he's scoring goals. He's got everything that you'd want in a player. And for Montreal last night, I didn't think Price played particularly well. I give them credit for killing off the penalties. They didn't lose to Toronto out of the penalty box. That's where Toronto's really been killing teams. But for Montreal, the big boys didn't score and you lost to their depth. That would concern me. Montreal's better defensively than they played last night. I thought a few bad defensive plays by Romanoff, who's a kid. It's going to happen. He had a rough night, turning the puck over on the Mikheyev goal, but that's going to happen to him. But yeah, just simple defensive plays. I thought they had a few breakdowns. The whole goal, Weber standing right close to Price. He's obviously a little ticked. The Dermott goal maybe gave him a little too much room. I still think Carey Price should have stopped that. But, it's a loss that'll sting for sure. But, they play again Saturday. They play this Saturday and they play next Saturday as well. So I think for Montreal, getting scoring from depth, some positives from last night for them. Even this whole year, Jonathan Drouin has played really well. He's playing with Suzuki and Anderson. I think playing with two really competent offensive players has really improved his game. He's getting turnovers. He's really creative with the puck. It's just, it's good to see from him. I still think Montreal would do the Sergachev trade back again in half a second, but it's still, it's good to see something from him. And obviously I think you're playing with Josh Anderson, you're going to get dragged into the fight, whether you want to or not. He's just got that motor and that energy that he brings everybody along with him. So again, I love him. I'll prop him up all year. I don't care if Montreal gets the last in the standings. That signing was not a bad one, nor that trade. But, and again, I know listeners to the podcast are going to think I hate the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I don't. I don't hate any team. Like, I watch the games and I just tell you what I think. And then I read stuff after the game because I don't listen to the sound. So I don't know what is said during the game. And it's something that I've only started really in the past 6 months, but when you don't listen to the sound, I just pick up on different things of the game. I don't need to hear the announcer tell me. I watch it myself. I don't like getting swayed by other people's opinion when I'm watching a game and I'm like, well, you should think this. Well, no, you should think what you think. Just because, Ferraro or whoever called it last night, CC and Craig Simpson said something. Well, that doesn't mean that's what happened. You have your own interpretation. But positive sign for Toronto. They've been on their hottest streak in years, and they've got their best team in years. And this division, but let's keep it 100. Montreal is a better team, top to bottom, than Toronto. Still, to me, that's just one guy's opinion. However, Toronto has more high-end skill. But I think the key X factor here for Toronto is you're playing in this Canadian division. It was hyped as this really tough division. You didn't hear that here, and to the point, you heard the truth, which is what's happening now. I thought it'd be better in the Central. Hasn't been this year. But nevertheless, we'll let the Toronto media do that. We won't do that here. But you have this division that's full. This is who I think the playoff teams are going to go down. Toronto will likely finish first. I said Winnipeg would. I'll be wrong, and I'll eat crow on that. Montreal likely second. I think Winnipeg can still push. They got what Pierre-Luc Dubois got to get put into this lineup. They got a strong ass team in Winnipeg, and they get these long layoffs between games. They've happened 2 or 3 times this year to them. I want them to play consistently here because they're going to start kicking some ass. So I like Winnipeg, Montreal, in whatever order you like there. And then the fourth team who Toronto will likely play is Edmonton or Calgary. Vancouver is a fucking disaster right now. I don't have any faith in them. They get 4 in a row against Calgary starting tonight. That's their season. If you lose 3 of those 4, you're done. Because they've already played 16 games. They played the most games in the NHL. There's teams in the Central who have played 9. They played 16 already. They lose tonight. If they lose 3 to 4, I'll say this. If Vancouver loses 3 to 4 in regulation in the next week, I'll come on here and they're done. I'll say it again. They are done. And I didn't think they make the playoffs before the season. So Calgary or Vancouver or Edmonton in the 4 spot. That's how I see it against Toronto. Well, you should win that series. You're the favorite. It doesn't mean you're going to win it because, as some people might remember, they were the favorite last year against Columbus, and we all know how that turned out. So, but it's the carpe diem moment right now of seize the day, seize the moment for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is your time. You're in a weak division. There's no fans, so it doesn't really matter, because I think it'd be different if they were playing. I'll say if it was a normal year and you were going to Edmonton to play Edmonton, say, that's not the same beast. No, it's loud in there. It's not just suits like it is at Scotiabank. It gets loud in Edmonton. So, but this is your best chance. So take it. Continue to play well. Frederik Andersen's another guy I forgot to mention. He's been solid, really solid this year. I think defensive play has really helped him. He's not as tired. In years past, he's been taking all the grief for Toronto losing when, his defense core had Tom, Bill, and Tom on the back end. Like, he had nobody in front of him, and the back checking from forwards, they're still skating back. They're still skating back to the zone right now, last year's team. So he's been great to start the year. The team's been fantastic. However, they did not win the Stanley Cup last night, and we'll continue to point that out here. I'll continue to point that out here into the point and continue to anger some people that think I hate the Leafs, which again is incorrect. Also, some other things. The Winnipeg-Calgary game the other night, I thought it was a great game. Dubois' debut, didn't play much, played 13 minutes. Be interested to see what he looks like tonight, second game against of his Jets career against the Ottawa Senators. But the officiating. There's that whole Columbus, Carolina offside bullshit. Again, review. If you're going to... do I have to go into another rant? If you're going to review stuff, which you shouldn't, but if you're going to, at least get the fucking thing right. Please. Come on. Please get the call right. That's all I ask. If I have to sit there and look at a fucking clock forever and at least get the call right. But in the Winnipeg Calgary game specifically, it's about 4 minutes left and they call a hooking penalty. And it's 4 minutes left. Like my point here is let them play. It's a ticky-tack call. And I think the Toronto Montreal game last night, the Shea Weber call, the hook on Matthews in the first period. Okay. That was a dive, but that's, again, neither here nor there. But I just think officiating, okay, maybe you're doing a lot of games because the players are playing a lot too, but you got to be better. I mean, it's that late in the game, you get a close game. And Paul Maurice said after the game, it's tough to lose on a late call like that. Totally agree, Paul. It shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen. And it's just not, it's tough. I just hate to see the game end that way. I'd rather see a penalty and them score than go to a shootout. I'll say that. But two great teams like that, let them duke it out and settle a winner without the officials having to have. I think it's a bit of their ego sometimes. They like to have control of the game. You see them drop the puck when a linesman kicks a guy out 3-4 times. Like, nobody's watching, nobody's tuning in on TV because you're there. Nobody gives a shit about you and your little heroics. Maybe for Wes McCauley, when he announces a fight, that's fun. Not the stupid linesman who's like, nope, your skate's an inch in. Like, drop the puck. Drop the puck, please. Just, it could this could all easily be solved. If they could somebody could hire me, and then they wouldn't have any of this crap, and the bad officials would be gone, and much happier world, but maybe one day. Another hot topic this week was Monday night's benching of Patrik Laine by John Tortorella in Columbus. Didn't play the last 7 minutes of the second period, benched the complete third period. Now, this is a big story. Obviously, it's a big story. It was his fourth game with the Columbus Blue Jackets. He scored 3 goals in 4 games. However, they didn't like Torts didn't like a few of his defensive plays, which is fair. Laine's had a hustle, work ethic issue since he arrived in the NHL. That's nothing new. Paul Maurice has voiced his frustration over Laine's lack of effort for a while now. And, I think it came, after everybody's saying, well, this is not going to last long. Like, this relationship's done. I'm not going to overreact like that. I don't think it means that he's done. He could have been done in Columbus before he arrived there because he doesn't want to play there. And it would have nothing to do with John Tortorella. Just for context, for people that just rip John Tortorella, okay, he lost Duchesne, Bobrovsky, all these Panarin, all these guys, right? They're all leaving, and they could say it's Torts' fault. Okay, whatever. That crowd, you stay over there. I'm going to be over here in rational land. All those players leave. Torts has still gotten his teams to the playoffs these past 2 years. Last year's team, who thought last year's team was going to make the playoffs? After all those guys gone, the Columbus Blue Jackets are gone. Not only did they make the playoffs, they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, the media darling, everybody's favorite team in the playoffs. The Wonderkins, they beat them with a bunch, with Nick Foligno and Atkinson and Texier and a bunch of other guys nobody's heard of. It's crazy. And Torts sent him a message. I think he wants to coach Laine long term. But if you're going to play for Torts, you're playing his style, period. Matt Barzal has sat for periods of time in Long Island under Barry Trotz. And for some reason, Barry Trotz gets all this clout that Torts doesn't get. They've won the same amount of Stanley Cups. Torts has coached at the Olympics. Torts has cachet. And his style works. I mentioned all these talent that have departed Columbus, and they stayed consistent. They stayed competitive. And they won the game. Laine was benched, and they win the game. Jack Roslovic, another new addition, scored a beauty winner. That was the story. Didn't even matter that Columbus won the game. Mattered to me, but Laine, they squashed it. Torts said, I don't want to bench him, but his defensive play hasn't been good enough. And then Patrik Laine said, he even admitted, he said, my benching was deserved. I really hope for Patrik Laine's sake that this is a turning point in his career. And what I mean by that is he can take this the right way or the wrong way. He can take it the childish way and bitch and complain and keep playing lazy, and then, it will end. And that's not going to be Torts' fault. That's going to be because he wasn't a man, wasn't a good hockey player, a good teammate, a good what have you, to just adapt to his game and get in better physical condition, period. Or he could say, you know what? I need to do some things better here. I can score 50 goals, but I can score 50 goals, but also be accountable defensively. I can also give an effort. I can clear the puck out of the zone. I can do these little things. I can play the system, and we can win. Just look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady could throw for 400 in the Super Bowl. He threw for 505 against the Eagles, but guess what? They lost the game. Tom Brady, if you asked him, would you rather throw for 505, the all-time playoff record, or throw for 201, 3 touchdowns, and win the Super Bowl? It's a no-brainer what he's going to take every time. The statistics are great, but Barzell's had okay statistics, but the Islanders have gotten to a conference final in the second round the past 2 seasons. The proof is in the pudding when it comes to success. And it's for Laine, you got to buy in. And is Torts hard on players? Yes. Is he the problem with some of them leaving? Of course. But just saying, oh, well, it's Torts' fault and Torts needs to be nicer on his kid, this isn't fucking Pee-wee. This is the NHL. It's supposed to be the best league in the world. And, this is nothing new for Laine. I listened to Craig Button yesterday, and I didn't know this, but I'll bring it to your attention. He said, Laine was left off 2 of the national teams in Finland when he was 16 and 17 because of work ethic. Now, really consider this. This is Finland. Yes, it's gotten better in hockey, but it's not that big, right? And he's Patrik Laine at 16, 17. He's got to be one of the best kids in the world, right? He's left off the team because of work ethic issues. They took a lesser team, offensively, to a tournament because Laine was just not effective as somebody else who was more connected and more bought into the team. That tells you something about him and how his makeup. So I really hope for his sake that he can find his game, that he can play better, because I want to see him to. I mean, he's a great player. He's a lot of fun to watch. But, just burying Torts, that's not something I'm going to do here. Again, he's kind of like me. He doesn't really enjoy the media. He doesn't see the fun in it. And he's not a media darling. And I think he's a guy that I think he's sending the correct message. And they play tonight against Chicago. So we'll see how Laine responds. But yeah. Also this week, Pittsburgh Penguins made they were looking for a GM after Jimmy Rutherford abruptly stepped down a few weeks ago. It was rumored maybe John Ferguson Jr., aka the Fergler, was in the mix. But they ultimately hired Ron Hextall as the general manager, former GM in Philadelphia. He was fired in Philly really prematurely. I thought he was a great GM. You look at some of the talent they have, and they've been a draft and developed team. Joel Farabee, Carter Hart, Scott Lawton, Ivan Provorov. These are all Ron Hextall picks. And, he was fired because they were struggling a little bit. He didn't want to bring Carter Hart up to the NHL, which I still think was a smart decision. But he ultimately gets fired. Now Philly's on a track to victory, Stanley Cup threats. And, he was unemployed. But Pittsburgh came calling. They needed a general manager, and they hired Hexy. And, in the shocking move, they hired Brian Burke from Sportsnet as the president of hockey ops. Obviously, Berkey has won a cup in Anaheim. He's worked for the Maple Leafs, Calgary Flames, Hartford Whalers way back in the day. And, I just finished his book. I mentioned that in the pod a few times. And he said in his book, he was done with hockey ops. He loved working at Sportsnet, committed to it. He never thought he'd go back. He got offered 3 jobs since he left Calgary to go work in the hockey ops department. And he said no. But he also mentions in the book that he missed the '05 draft is one of his biggest regrets because they didn't win the lottery. Pittsburgh did. Pittsburgh got Crosby. He drafted Bobby Ryan. Bobby Ryan is ultimately a champion, winning a cup with him, but nevertheless, he missed out on one of the best players in the history of the game. But he said in his media availability that he's got Sid now. He wanted Sid in '05. He's got him now in 2021, and it's an interesting job here because you got Crosby, Malkin, 36 years old, Crosby 34, Letang, who still got some game, but it's tailed off for me in the past couple of years. I've never been the biggest Chris Letang fan to begin with. Their goaltending depth isn't there. Jari hasn't been great. DeSmith is a backup at best. Their defense core has looked better, has been better, but they don't have a lot of young talent. Jimmy Rutherford's been a guy who said he didn't care about first round picks. He wanted to win, and it worked. 16, 17, they win Stanley Cups, and it's worth it. But I think it's an interesting job right now. I think it's an interesting job because I don't know what they told Tom Morehouse and Mario Lemieux, and if they told him what they wanted to hear or told him the truth about the state of this franchise. Yes, Crosby's still playing. I think he's been playing okay this year. He hasn't been great. They've had to stop a few times for COVID, but if you're a Pittsburgh fan, you can message Trevor Ryan. You can ask him. I'm sure he'll say Crosby's been playing fantastic, but he's 5-on-5. He hasn't been that effective a player. Malkin hasn't been that great. I think Malkin's really had a terrible start to the year. Pittsburgh's got some good pieces. I like Brian Rust. I think he's better than people give him credit for. They say Crosby plays with nobody. So Jay Gensel's a pretty good hockey player. Like if you know hockey, Gensel's a good hockey player. Like he's not Chris Kunitz, who, Crosby loved. And maybe the answer is, okay, we're going to get some new younger voices, faces to play with Crosby. Well, if I think back, Crosby's had to have some input on personnel decisions. And if you don't think he has, I think you're out to lunch. I mean, look how Crosby affected the Olympics and getting Chris Kunitz on the team. He likes playing with players that aren't even close to him in caliber of play. Pascal Dupuis, Chris Kunitz, Rust. I mean, I think Gensel's the best winger he's had in a long time. He had success with Connor Sheary. But maybe that's the answer. But this team is not, it's no lock it's going to be a playoff team. I thought they would be before the year. Their goaltending has been worse than I thought it was going to be. I mean, Jari looked like a deer in the headlights. But it's an interesting job because who knows how it's going to go. Berkey is a guy who likes, he went through a couple rebuilds. He did it in Hartford. He did it in Vancouver when he was working as an AGM under Pat Quinn. So he had obviously had to do it in Toronto where he tried to win, but they ultimately had to overhaul that. And I think this could be similar to the Toronto job if they think, well, we're really close to winning. I don't think they're that close to winning. And this could be a position where they have to sit down with Sid, Gino, and maybe you include Letang in that conversation. Say, this is where we see how we're going. We're going to get some draft picks. We're probably going to be a team that struggled for a couple of years. Maybe in a few years we turn it around. We go and try to win a cup. Are you ready for this? Well, Malkin's 36 years old. If he's going to win another cup, he's going to need to do it soon because his game's falling off quicker than Crosby's. Crosby, I don't know if he'd ever leave Pittsburgh, but I think you got to give him the courtesy and ask him, this is what we're going to do, and do you want out? And give us your list. Because he's deserved that there. He's one of the best players to ever play the game. So you got to give him that common courtesy and give him that out. But I just don't see this team. They don't have the AHL is pretty bare. They don't have a lot of high-end prospects that are close. This isn't going to be that great for Pittsburgh. I think they're going to need to commit to a rebuild of sorts, a rebuild on the fly. But it surprised me that Berkey took the job because if he's going to have to go through a rebuild, does he really want to do that at his age, as a president of hockey ops? I don't know. I think this year you'll see Pittsburgh kind of push their chips in what they have left to try to compete and make the playoffs and go for a cup. Because if it is, I see it similar to Boston. If you don't win this year or next, your window's shut because there's teams that are younger, faster, and just better than you. But could we see Sidney Crosby in a Montreal Canadiens uniform in the next couple of years? Who knows? That would be interesting. I don't know if he'd leave Pittsburgh, but I knew he grew up liking the Montreal Canadiens, and that would intrigue me. Obviously, I think that would be an interesting option for him. But it for Pittsburgh, I think they got to rebuild. But with Brian Burke as president, I see a hard time them doing it. He likes to get some. He reminds me of Jimmy Rutherford a bit. And maybe they go out and acquire some truculence, acquire some forwards that are, Brian Burke style, and try to win that way. Because, he mentioned it on an interview. 2017 Penguins were the last really team that won the cup without having a lot of physical, heavy play. That team was, their defense was a bunch of really no-name defense. Brian Dumoulin, his coming out party. But, they didn't have a great heavy team. After that, Washington, heavy. St. Louis, heavy. Tampa, heavy teams. That seems to be the common denominator. And to win, you're going to have some of that heaviness in your game. So it wouldn't surprise me to see the Penguins go out and try to make a few moves and improve their team that way this year and see if they can win one now. But moving forward, I do not see this team competing for a cup. They just don't have enough depth. They don't have enough to attract people to come. We'll see what they do. Malkin's got this year and next left on his deal. And then he can walk. So we'll see what happens. Another team that's been off to a hot start this year, I mentioned the Leafs off the top, but the Boston Bruins, one regulation loss, which is, the best in hockey right now. Then Florida's played less games than them, but Toronto's got 2 regulation losses. The Bruins have one. They beat the Rangers last night in overtime. Beautiful play by McAvoy to Brad Marchand. But the Bruins look good. I mean, they look really good. Pasternak got robbed a few times last night, but he's come back. Hasn't looked like he's lost a step at all in his game. I think McAvoy's played pretty solid this year. Marchand's with 8 goals already. It's clicking for Boston right now. And Tuukka Rask, to his credit, I've been hard on him about his tenure in the bubble. He's played, big save last night, midway through the second period on Mika Zibanejad. Zibanejad had a breakaway, stops that. They obviously tied the game late, but they scored 36 seconds into overtime. But in that division, you got Washington, Philly, you got Boston. It's tough right now, but they've beaten Philly 4 times this year. And I like the cut of the Bruins jib. I just think they still have that nucleus of players that have been to cup finals, that have had success. And when you have that winning mentality, it's hard to get rid of it. And, Pittsburgh, I still think has some of that with Crosby, but you got Bergeron, you got Marchand, you got Pasternak. Losing Charles is going to hurt. But the Bruins, I think some people kind of thought before the year, they've lost a lot of pieces. They're getting a little older. They'll miss the playoffs. I don't think that's even in the conversation now. You got New York, the Islanders being too inconsistent, the Rangers being too inconsistent, Pittsburgh. Who the hell knows how they're going to play down the stretch here. But the Bruins have been fantastic so far this year, and they really have been for the past decade. So another team like Pittsburgh, where if they don't win sooner rather than later, their window is going to shut on them. And we'll see what they do. Big game tonight. We talk a lot about the All-Canadian division a lot here, but this is a game for me that I've circled and I'm definitely going to watch. It's Tampa Bay and Florida. The Central Division, like I said, it's been COVID ravaged and teams have missed a bunch of games, but Tampa, they've been dominant so far this year. Again, just thrashing Nashville on Monday night. But Florida too. Florida one regulation loss to the Detroit Red Wings. Patrick Hornquist already with 6 goals. He's been playing some great hockey. Barkov, Huberdeau really contributing. And I just want to see what Florida's made of tonight. They're playing against the best team in hockey. What can they bring? And they've lost Dadonov. They lost Mike Hoffman last year in this past offseason. Do they have enough to compete with a Tampa Bay team? Can they make it a competitive game? A big reason why I think it could be competitive tonight is if Bobrovsky can finally come out and play a full game where you're like, okay, he made some good saves. He kept us in it. He wasn't the reason why we lost. And I think you can make that argument a lot about Bobrovsky lately. He's too inconsistent. He lets in goals where you're like, what the hell just happened? I mean, that's Sergei Bobrovsky. And Florida, I didn't think they'd be as good as they were to start the year. I still don't think they're that great of a team. But, they're playing consistent hockey right now, and they got Carolina, Columbus, Tampa. Those are the teams you really think that are going to make a dent in this division. Chicago is hung around because every game they go to goes to overtime or a shootout, so they're getting 1 point every night. But for these teams, they play again Saturday, so it's another one of those series for these two. But I want to see what Tampa can do tonight. I think Monday night was really impressive for me. I mean, Stamkos, he missed all the playoffs. It was tough. They won the cup. He played 3 minutes or whatever it was. But he's played in every game so far this year, and he's looked damn good. I mean, the other night against Nashville, 3 points. He's a goal scorer, but he's got great vision. They're getting depth scoring. Matthew Joseph potted 2 the other night. Eric Chernak scored a goal. Sergachev's off to another great start. And you also got, the best defenseman in the NHL and Victor Hedman, controlling things. But for Florida, you need some solid goaltending. So Bobrovsky, they've already announced he's starting. So he's getting the chance to play the champs. What can he do in that spot? Can he play some good goaltending? For Florida too, test their defense. The likes of Weegar, Yandel, Strawman. Can you contain these forwards, the Points, the Stamkoses, these fast guys that are tough to match up against? How will they fare? These next couple of games with Tampa playing Florida will tell me a lot about Florida. If they got that bite, even if they lose tonight, if they stay in the fight, they keep it a close game, send a message to the rest of the division that, they're not just going to be a pushover team here. I mean, they got the coach in Joel Quenneville, who's the ultimate winner, who's had so much success in the NHL that, it wouldn't surprise me, if Florida does make the playoffs. Just it's Joel Quenneville. He's a winner. If there ever was a winner, he's the ultimate winner. So I like what he's doing there. But yeah, I mean, Florida, they got some players you wouldn't even think of. You see their name, you're like, who's that? But they work really hard, and we'll see what they can bring tonight against the Cup champs. Also wanted to mention before we got off hockey, Mikko Koivu. He retired from Columbus on Tuesday. He was a healthy scratch Monday night. I don't know if he retired because he was tired of torts or if it was, just because he played 1,035 games. He was the captain Minnesota for over a decade. But just a great career. Him and his brother, pretty cool that they were both captains for different franchises for both over a decade. Over 1,000 games. I think he's been coming from Finland, really playing fantastic. I can't say enough good things about him as a two-way centerman. I think he represented Columbus, and he really embraced that community, being a European, coming over, staying there his whole career until this year. But just a great career for Mikko Koivu. He was a class act on the ice. His teammates really liked him, and just a good career. But yeah, he's a player I always admired and liked, so I thought I would point that out before we move on. Also in the sports world right now is the Australian Open. It can be tough to watch because it starts every night at 8:00 and it goes through all hours of the night. But just a few headlines. Tuesday night I watched Bianca Andreescu's second match back, and she lost in straight sets. It was second round match. She loses 6-2, 6-3. And she just wasn't in. She wasn't in game shape, and she didn't have enough tennis just under her belt. She was firing errors all over the place. She didn't look like she was going to keep up. It was warm in Australia. She was hitting, just kind of sweating profusely. She needs to get in better physical shape. And for her, just to play some tennis, because a lot of she was playing a counter punchers, like to call these players, where the woman she's playing is not going to try to out hit her, try to hit winners. She's going to put balls in play and hope that the opponent, hits one, hits an error. And she, Bianca was doing that in spades the other night. So hopefully she can find her game a little bit. She needs to get some tennis in, play some tournaments upcoming, get back into the swing of things, and maybe come the grass and hard court season, Wimbledon and the US Open this summer, she's better equipped for the challenge and can, play some elite tennis. But, we've seen some big seeds already. Defending champion last year, Sofia Kenin was beaten last night in straight sets. Petra Kvitova was upset in straight sets. It's Victoria Azarenka lost in her first round match, who was a finalist at the US Open. So the women's side's always a revolving door. The one constant you can really expect is Serena Williams. I mean, she's played 2 matches so far, been a dominant force. She's seeking her 24th Grand Slam title, which has been, on her mind since the 2017 Australian Open, where she won her 23rd, just prior to her having her baby. But, Serena's already the best female tennis player of all time. And I think you can make the argument that Serena Williams is one of the best athletes of all time, period, regardless of sex. Her dominance over the sport is unmatched. And I think obviously she's getting up there in age. I think she's 38, same as Roger Federer. Federer not in the men's side, but if she's going to win at 24th, which I don't think it is necessary. She's, like I said, she's already established herself as the best. But to tie Margaret Court, I think it's important for her. Clearly, she wants to keep playing. And, it's going to have to happen soon. I think her best chances of doing that are, really the French. I don't see it as her best chance, but I like it here for Serena because it's February in Australia, so it's coming out of the summer season. So it's not too warm. In Wimbledon, it can be good because she's just so dominant on grass and how that plays for her. But we'll see what happens. But she's played 2 matches so far. She plays her 3rd round match tonight, and she's looked dominant so far. And then also tonight, it's for Canadian tennis fans. I mean, this is a big one. Third round match between Felix Auger-Aliassime and Denis Shapovalov, both Canadian tennis players. Felix has won both his matches in straight sets, looking very confident. Denis survived a scare in his first round match, winning in 5 sets and then beating Bernard Tomic 6-1, 6-3, 6-2 in his second round match. But it's obviously a tough draw if you're a Canadian. You like to see these guys play each other in the Grand Slam final. But for these guys are good friends, and it's bragging rights more than anything. I remember they played at the Rogers Cup, and Felix Auger-Aliassime beat Denis when Denis was really at the height of his popularity. But, Denis had a strong year last year, making deep runs in majors. But for Felix, I think he's got more of the upside as a player. And, whoever wins gets into a round of 16, and who knows what can happen with the draw. But it's a big match tonight for both of them, just to have some bragging rights, move on in the tournament, money, things of that nature. But I think both these guys have been kind of fighting each other for supremacy. Who's going to be the next young men's tennis star? Raonic has been around for a long time. He's made a Grand Slam final. He's got a great serve, but I don't think he's good enough to win a major. And I think that's, been established for quite a while now. Bianca obviously won a Grand Slam on the women's side, which changed Canadian tennis and the outlook on the future for women's tennis and just tennis in Canada in general. But for these two, they got the same opportunity. You got Federer, who's 38. Nadal is getting older. Who knows how long he's going to play? You got Djokovic, it seems crazier and crazier every event he goes to. Like who knows? He might just retire out of the blue because he thought he saw, I don't know. He's just a weird dude. But for these two, I mean, they're elite players. I think you think of Zverev, you think of Dominic Thiem, Tsitsipas are guys in the men's tennis game that have really, come out as maybe the next stars, Andrei Rublev too. But I think both these kids could be involved in that discussion. I mean, for Dennis, the power he plays with on his ground strokes, it really puts pressure on the opponent. And he's got a great serve too. And the biggest thing for him is just his mind. We've seen him snap before, hit a ball, hit the lines person, hit the chair ump. So he needs to keep calm when he's on court. He can kind of lose it a little bit. For Felix, I think he's still young. I think he's still figuring it out, but he seems to be more mature. I mean, his first two round matches, he didn't face any scare. And part of that's just very good. I think he's improved his defense, his defensive play, just his return of serve, I think is really improved for him. And just his court vision, his decision-making, what to do at certain times. So they play tonight. It should be good. I mean, I get it, it's tough to watch, but like I've said before, obviously some people aren't going to do this, but get the old PVR and you can watch it anytime. This tournament's ongoing till a week from Sunday. So it's a fun tournament. I like the Aussie Open, and those are just some of the big headlines right now. Serena plays tonight as well. But yeah, some champions going down, some good players still in the field here. We'll see what makes of this tournament going forward. But yeah, the NHL is going. The NBA last night, the Lakers picking up another victory in overtime against OKC, their third game going to at least overtime. Not a lot of big stories there. They're still planning on going ahead with the All-Star game with now a dunk contest, which is just even more ridiculous with this whole All-Star game fiasco in the NBA, and I don't understand why they're doing it. Some other NFL news was that Russell Wilson went on the Dan Patrick Show on Tuesday, and he was complaining about his offensive line play, about how many, he's been sacked. I didn't really realize this. He's been sacked 394 times in his career, and he's on track to, in the next 3 years, if it continues going the way it is, he'll be sacked the most in NFL history. And in 3 years, he'll be 35. He'll be sacked more than Brady and Brett Favre, and they're at 43 and 41. I mean, that's for Tom. That's like that many years ahead of him when it comes to age. That many seasons, and he'll be sacked that much. He kind of complained about he wants to have an input in the personnel decisions, and this really correlates to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson wanted an input on the head coach, wanted an input on the general manager, and after not getting it, he wants out of Houston. And I think it's a player empowerment era where the NBA really led this, where players have more say in their fate, where they end up, what sponsors they have, what have you, than ever before. They control their own destiny, so to speak. So it's interesting to watch what'll happen here. But yeah, who knows? I don't think Russell Wilson's going anywhere, but I think he does want some things to change. He doesn't want to be taking this many hits. He said on the interview he wants to play another 10, 15 years. Well, the rate it's going and the amount of hits he's taking, there's no way in hell he's playing that long. His body just will break down. But we'll see how the team reacts if they include him in personnel decisions when it comes to drafting, free agency, what have you. But that's a dangerous precedent, because then it gives every young quarterback or every quarterback that has a little bit of clout, they feel like they become, GM of the day and they know what's best. So it's a tightrope here that teams are going to have to walk, and I think just treating your players with respect from jump is a good way to go, because then they're not going to be barking down your door trying to, draft an O lineman when, you got a stud receiver on the board. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's show. I'll be back tomorrow morning, talk about the Tampa Bay game and some other things around the NHL and any other news that comes up. I'll be with Craig Eagles tonight for episode 5 of Under Review as we talk to Shane Turner. Shane works for the Dallas Stars, another scouting role, player development. So we'll be talking to him about a wide variety of things. You can find that video on YouTube. It should be up shortly after 8 o'clock, because we're doing the interview at 7:30. So check that out on the FBS Podcast Network Facebook page, and you can also find it on To The Point on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't already subscribed YouTube channel, subscribe. Hit the like button. Leave me some comments. I respond to everyone I can, and I like the interaction. So if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, you hate me today, well, let me know. That's fine. We can talk about it and we can work out our differences. But yeah, everybody have a great Thursday. Like I said, I'll be back tonight, so hopefully you can tune in then. But if until then, have a great day, everybody. We'll talk soon.